All right, so with the ramifications reverberating around the world, what does this mean for other countries? Female-only networking app Giggle founder and good friend of the show, Sall Grover, is hopeful that it will inspire change in her country of Australia. And she joins me now. Sall, how lovely to see you.
Thank you so much for having me. Good to see you too.
Right, first up, your response to the decision last week.
Oh, I mean, you just couldn't ask for a better decision. It was perfection. It's bizarre in the sense that a court has to remind everybody of what a woman is, but such is the mess that society has gotten itself into.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I know the 4 Women Scot ladies. I'm so proud of them. It's just, it's one of those things where when a country like the UK has a win like this, as you said, it does actually filter down to the other countries. We've seen that also with America. So you now have the US and the UK have both established at the highest level what a woman is. In Australia, however, I mean, we're like the band on the Titanic. Just
keep playing.
It's just absurd. But I actually am incredibly optimistic.
Oh, good. So I saw you on the project, Sall, and I think our listeners know the project. We tried to do it in New Zealand and it was pretty terrible. To be fair, the Australian one's pretty terrible as well. But I was blown away by the whole lot of them, to be honest, the whole panel. But one of the women said, a lot of people don't agree with you. In fact, far from it. Firstly, does it still surprise you, Sall, that many women defend men in women's spaces?
No, it doesn't surprise me at all. I don't respect it, but I understand why they're doing it. So
why do they do it?
Because she would see what happens to women who do actually stand up against trans activism, and it's terrifying. I mean, if you want to keep your job, if you have responsibilities, you don't want your life turned upside down. I understand it.
Right.
It's a survival mechanism, I think. I don't respect it at this point, because I think if everybody actually just, spoke up, it would be much easier and quicker to end this madness. And that's always been the case in the last decade, half a decade, however long anyone's been involved in it. But I will also just say I have a little bit of a long history with the project, in the sense that back in 2019,
sorry,
when we were getting ready to launch Giggle, like the app exclusively for women, before I'd ever been called transphobic or anything, there was all of this mainstream Australian media that we had contacted and organized to help us with the launch. And they were all so excited, saying, yes, this is just a bullseye for our audience, and this is such a great idea, we'll help you. And the project was one of them. And the moment I was transphobic, they never responded to me ever again, until last Thursday. I was getting lunch for my daughter and my phone rang, and it was a producer from the project. And I was like, well, I have been waiting 5 years for your call. So even though they were quite hostile to me, I'm very grateful for them having me on, because I wasn't talking to them. I was talking to their audience.
Yeah. Yeah. I sat through it, and then there's a guy, look, I don't know who they are, but there was I found it quite interesting too, that at the very end, when they said, they said, thank you very much for your time, goodbye, all that stuff. And then one of the guys just went on this 5-minute ranty monologue about how, hey, let's not panic, everybody. This is in the UK. We've got different laws, which he was speaking the truth. But the other 2 women were sitting there looking at him, I thought, with a mix of, why is a man coming out with, why is he giving us his take on it and his opinion, and the woman just sat there and couldn't say anything. And I finished, when it finished, I thought, it doesn't affect you, buddy. Like, it's just the funniest thing. You're a man, and you're just taking this weird stance, and you got 2 women sitting there, and he was just talking on and on and on and on about it. And it just kind of struck with me that, you've still got the basic the men who might be a bit misogynistic. I don't know if this guy is. And then you've got trans men, women in frocks, still telling us what to do, or trying to tell us what to do. I don't know. I don't know.
I think there's some men who are getting sort of their last 15 minutes of public misogyny in before it no longer becomes stunning and brave to be able to voice it so publicly. So they're sort of
Yeah.
having their last day in the sun with it. I mean, I saw that they basically were calling me the ideological one.
Yes.
Which is just, I mean, it's just simply wrong. That's gaslighting at the highest level. I'm not the one who is gaslighting. None of the women who have been fighting this are. We are just simply saying that, you know, you can identify however you want. That's actually freedom of belief. If you are a man who wants to call yourself a woman, like whatever floats your boat, you just can't take away women's rights for you to be able to do that. It's and also I will say this does affect men. I always say it actually does. It affects everyone in society because it is also freedom of belief, freedom of speech, and general freedom to be able to acknowledge reality and have your own perception. Gender ideology takes all of that away, and so that's why it's not sustainable. It doesn't work in society at all. So like the quicker we can get it gone, the better.
You talked about having conversations. You hoped now to have conversations that were fact-based, mature, and you really want to find a way to accommodate everybody. What did you mean by that? And how can you always accommodate everybody?
Look, I say that like I'm happy to accommodate everybody in the sense that, like, you know, if there is a demographic that actually says there's something specific we need, I'm not going to stop them. If there is wanting to go and create third spaces, whatever, that actually doesn't have anything to do with me. If that is something that is required in society, okay. But the most important thing is bringing reality back into law and the general zeitgeist. And so that's like my main concern. And that is something that does impact everybody. Yeah. And so, and then I think that is the most important thing. I think that more than men who claim to be women getting their own bathrooms, I actually think they just need a big dose of reality. That will help. Yeah. And then we can go from there.
If a ruling like what we saw, what's happened in the UK happen in Australia, what would it look like?
They edited this answer. I mean, so it's very important to understand that in UK, the legal framework in the UK and the legal framework in Australia are very, very different in the sense that the UK still had the definitions of men and women. They still had an anchor to reality in their legislation. We don't in Australia. In 2013, when Julia Gillard did the amendments to the Sex Discrimination Act, and she took out the definitions of man and woman and put in the definition of gender identity, it muddled the entire thing. And so undoing that is quite tricky because on top of that, rather than having anything like a gender recognition certificate in Australia, people who claim to have a gender identity or a trans identity are allowed to change the sex marker on their birth certificate, which has created this concept of legal sex. And in Tickle v. Eagle, the federal court case I'm involved in last year, the judge on that one, his decision was that sex is changeable. Now, obviously, biological sex is not changeable, but he's referring to legal sex and saying that the ordinary meaning of sex is a legal concept, which is nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. Like nobody's walking into a bar to try and find a potential spouse or what have you and being like, I wonder what their legal sex is. Like the ordinary meaning of sex is biological. It's how like it has always been, and it's actually how we structure our lives and how we make big decisions in our lives. So he's completely wrong. So we are in the appeal for that at the moment. Yeah. So the appeal will be heard in August, and we'll probably get a decision around the end of the year, probably around the beginning of December, hopefully. And what it would look like in Australia to get a decision that has the same effect here would be, there's a few different ways it could go. It could just be an acknowledgement that already in the act that sex obviously has a biological meaning, and that when it's sex that matters, it's sex that overrides gender identity. You could also have a situation, I mean, I'm really dreaming here, where the judges just say the amendments are ridiculous and really do put on pressure. That's more of a high court decision, though, which is where we would go in the next round. When we'll probably go with the loser of this round would take it. So we have a lot of work to do in Australia to get to that point. That being said, the government, the government could remove the amendments in a week.